The Ultimate Marvel Universe, the modern reimagining of all your favorite Marvel superheroes, where the childish and goofy ideas of the Silver to the Bronze Age are discarded for gritty realism, for modern melodrama, for mature storytelling, for a new generation. Okay. That's me being cynical over the entire thing, especially what killed it eventually. But you know what? Let's backtrack a bit here. Now, to be fair, when it started, it actually did deliver on its promise on updating and modernizing the wider Marvel universe, which is also known as Earth 616, by the way. But like all universes with ongoing continuity, the entire thing became convoluted with plot holes and character assassinations. But first, let's dive deep into the history of what led to Ultimate Marvel's birth and death first. This will be a bit of a long backstory, so bear with me. So, while most of the world can argue that Marvel is now a successful, influential giant in society, there was a time that it was limping on its legs. If it was limping and it had two amputations, of course. Back in the 90s, the US comic industry was struggling with declining sales. For Marvel, this was an especially bad time. Most of their prized artists, including Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, and Rob Liefeld, also yes, he was a prized artist too because of X-Force and, well, even though he has like problems with drawing feet, had all left to form Image Comics. This combined with the poor sales resulted in Marvel filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Alright, I know, it's kind of a weird thought to have like a company like Marvel filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. But yeah, different times, different era. Another thing that bogged down like new potential readers from buying Marvel was the absurd amount of continuity that they had to catch up on, which is something that DC also struggles, which all stories had to fit into, which is a huge problem. For example, like X-Men. Now imagine picking up an issue of X-Men Volume 2, let's say issue 5, whatever, and you had to read about how Magneto used to be the leader of the X-Men and how there was a mutant massacre and how the X-Men were dead for quite some time. And if you wanted to read all about that, you had to go back issue whatever 100 200 something of Uncanny X-Men or The New Mutants, like issue 25 something, yada yada yada, from all the way from 1980 or 1965, etc., etc. Now you see the problem, right? So how did Marvel solve this itch? Bring in a lawyer! I'm not kidding. They actually brought in a lawyer. His name is Bill Jamaz, who mainly worked at the collectible trading industry, and he had little interaction with comic books in general. But he proposed an idea. Reboot all the heroes to their original premise, but unlike most reboots, there'd be no in-universe explanation for it. Not like Crisis on Infinite Earths where everything had to be restarted, or Flashpoint. This reboot would just exist alongside the regular Marvel universe. So you have the rebooted universe and the main Marvel universe separate. So this meant that this rebooted Spider-Man would have stories about teenage Spider-Man just starting out his career, while the usual Spider-Man titles would still continue with the adult married Spider-Man with nearly all of the 60 years worth of continuity on. A quick note before we continue, the working title for the imprint was Ground Zero, which yeah, glad they didn't make that final. Also, this wasn't really the first time Marvel tried to do the whole reboot thing. The first time was called Heroes Reborn, which will open a can of worms, but this is not that video. So the initiative began, starting with Joe Quesada hiring artist Brian Michael Bendis for the flagship comic Ultimate Spider-Man. And actually, when he was hired, he states, and I quote, "When I got hired, I literally thought I was going to be writing one of the last, if not the last, Marvel comics." The way Bendis got hired is actually interesting to me. You see, it's mentioned here in my research that a previous auditioner just made a word-for-word rewrite of Amazing Fantasy 15, the magazine where Spider-Man debuted. The way Bendis did it, he avoided that kind of style. He changed the narration style in a way that reminds me of a TV series instead of a comic book. No thought bubbles, no long expositions, which by the way was common in a lot of books. A lot of older books. In fact, the first issue doesn't even have the costume. This style of narration, combined this with the art of Mark Bagley, who by the way was the artist of Spider-Man and Venom in the 90s. So if you have like a specific image of Venom in your head, that's probably Mark Bailey was probably the one who drew that. Combine that with Marvel's sacred character, you get tada, good sales and reception. Expectedly, Ultimate Spider-Man was a huge success. Now, I've read the book, and while some of the high school humor and social cues are kind of dated for the early 2000s, it really is a good book, balancing drama, humor, and good superhero action all in one. In fact, a lot of Ultimate Marvel's success was mostly based on the writing. For example, the Ultimates, which is basically the Avengers of the Ultimate Universe, were written in a way an Avengers movie was written, rather than a traditional comic book storyline. Speaking of, chances are you've probably seen the influence of Ultimate Marvel, even in the movies. Biggest influence I can name is Samuel L. Jackson playing Nick Fury. Fury in the main universe was a Caucasian gray-haired man, and in Ultimate he was modeled after Samuel Jackson. But the thing is, Samuel L. Jackson kinda knew that he was being used as the reference, and he contacted Marvel, but he told them that, you know what, sure, you can use my likeness, but I get to play Nick Fury if there's a movie involving Nick Fury. So I guess that was kind of a good deal for Marvel. I mean, they couldn't really like survive another lawsuit at the time, right? Anyhow, a factor of its success was also the world building, blending real world politics and superhero tropes. That's something that Marvel and DC has not been able to repeat since. Especially like after 9/11, I believe. Things like Hulk making a rampage in NYC was suddenly seen as ominous or distressing. Generally, any form of general collateral damage wasn't seen as funny as anymore. With the war on terror at the time, debates about the use of superhumans in anti-terrorist operations, superhumans arms race, it made it feel more grounded in the real world. Biggest examples of these kinds of topics were the X-Men, involving heavy themes of discrimination, minorities, and terrorism, mutants being victims of hate crimes or made into exploited warriors against the enemies of the government. And this was also around the time that X-Men were shifted to being a queer allegory, something that spread into the main universe and adaptations. Okay, that's a mouthful of lore and exposition. Now comes the beginning of the end. So gradually, being comics in general, inevitably it will become bloated with continuity. I mean, sure, it had only been like 8 years worth of continuity at that point, but the bloat was becoming noticeable. And the other one, which is kind of common and something that really grinds my gears, is inconsistent writing. See, the way comics work is that there isn't like one theme the entire run, right? Sometimes writers or editors change mid-run, and these new writers or editors usually just have their own ideas that they want to implement, which can sometimes contradict or ignore previous established canon. And sometimes new writers mimic what the original writers did, but without understanding anything of the meaning behind it. The results? Mature storytelling comprised of gratuitous porn, and I don't usually complain about art in comics, but comics are notorious for and infamous for their unrealistic depiction of women's bodies or costume. And the final nail in the coffin of the Ultimate Universe, Jeff Loeb. Now, first, to give context to the contextception. At around this point in time, Loeb's son Sam had just unfortunately lost his battle to cancer. And let me just state for the record, I don't think any parent deserves to go through what Jeff Loeb underwent with their child losing to cancer. So I would like to give a moment of silence in this video to pay my respects to Sam Loeb. Now, as to why I mentioned this specific detail in Jeff Loeb's life, it's been speculated among fans and critics in general that most of the nihilism, the extreme violence present in Loeb's writing around this time in the Ultimate Universe had been his way of dealing and coping with his son's death. And I generally feel bad for him for this because it's a big cry for help to push your feelings into your work. But what I don't feel bad is whoever was in charge didn't notice any of these signs. Like, Why would you put in charge of an entire massive fictional universe a man who just is currently grieving for his son's death? What? Whew, here we are. Road to Ultimatum. Ultimatum was preceded by Ultimates 3, Ultimate Power, and the Ultimate Origins. By the way, can you guess that this is the Ultimate Universe with the word Ultimate in all the titles? As much as I want to explain everything, it'll honestly take too long. Too long. Even for a long form video like this. Yeah, I'll just summarize some points. Only the important parts that will play like a role in Ultimatum or the Ultimate Universe in general, which looking back, not really most of it doesn't really like come back anyway because writing. Ultimate Power doesn't really play much relevance here. It's basically Reed Richards like sending probes to other universes to hope to contact these other universes in hopes of like finding a cure for Ben Grimm, yada yada yada, crossover. TLDR, Doctor Doom is a dick. Nick Fury is a big asshole, and Nick Fury worked with Doctor Doom, and he got banished to another universe. Nothing in the story really mattered in the grand scheme of things in the wider Marvel universe. So we started Ultimates 3. And page 1, we are greeted to an adult tape. No, seriously, it's Iron Man and Black Widow's tape, and it got leaked. Wow. Nice intro there, book. Now, this miniseries is infamous for something, but let's get there in a bit. Slow burn. Ultimate Captain America talks to Wanda about wearing a less revealing outfit. Okay, understandable. I mean, he's a man out of time, 1940s, different ideals. Oh yeah, by the way, Captain America, of course, is a huge dick in this universe. Start getting used to it while reading Ultimate Marvel. Quicksilver gets defensive, nothing new. He's an overprotective brother. Sibling energy, sibling power, whatever. And then Janet Van Dyne, also known as the Wasp, then tells Steve that the siblings are in love. Yes, I know. Take that in. Take that in, please. The Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, two siblings, are in love with each other. That's right. That is completely right. You are not mishearing anything. You know what's even weird and stupid about this? It's Captain America that's treated as weird and out of touch for being disgusted about it. I swear. Like, what? As an actual ambassador from the planet 21st century, society still and will never accept incest. Hopefully. Oh yeah, and Wanda got shot. Yeah, and something to note. A doctor performs CPR on a gunshot victim. Because... what? Non-existent logic? I don't know if this is like Loeb not really understanding how medical stuff works, or this is just some lazy insert about necrophilia or something. I don't know. The only real, like, I guess important is that the doctor who performs on Wanda CPR is Dr. Donald Blake, which was Thor's alter ego in the main comics. But aside from that, I don't know why a doctor is performing CPR on an obvious gunshot victim, but okay. Now, the main thing most people will notice reading this dump fire is how much everyone is an asshole. Hawkeye hunts 15-year-old Spider-Man and tranquilizes him, and puts a gun to his head. Cap disarms Hawkeye, however, before shooting Peter, and then they leave Peter in the snow, tranquilized. You guys know he's 15 and he's immobilized with tranquilizers, right? And it's snowing. Did I mention the snow? Also, Tony Stark is a massive alcoholic in this universe. God, dude, with the amount of drinks Tony drinks in this universe, how can anyone still function, much less like do anything consistently drunk? It's like, okay, I get it, it's comic books, but like every time he's on panel, he's usually drunk or he's drinking. Like, what? Isn't it frustrating for characters not to be like, their characters? Okay, TLDR, yes, I know, I'm sorry. Because God, this is such a mess. I'm saving you the pain from reading this, I swear to God. Issue 2, Wolverine shows up because, why not? We gotta have Wolverine and everything, right? Tells the Ultimates he banged Magneto's wife, so he could potentially be the father of Pietro and Wanda? What? Also, Hawkeye has a suicidal death wish and is unstable, and is also a big massive asshole to everyone because angsty pain, edginess, etc. Whatever. Mastermind and Pyro, two villains from the Brotherhood of Mutants, tries to R-word 19-year-old Valkyrie because it's edgy. What the fuck? Oh, and the entire thing was because Ultron came to life because Wanda accidentally did a spell. Oh, yeah, now how that's convenient. And then he killed her because it knew she'd never love it, and then made robot copies of the Ultimates because of course he did. Also, why did it kill Wanda but not Pietro? Your rival's there. Why kill Pietro? Also, why didn't it just kill Pietro instead? Like, that's your rival, isn't it, Ultron? Why'd you kill the girl that you loved? Because you knew it wouldn't love you? But your rival for Wanda's love is Pietro, right? Wait, why am I making sense of this entire garbage? And possibly the single worst one-liner I've ever read in my entire life, I swear to God. So Ultron here says Wasp is like its mother. And then Hank Pym says, I guess that makes me the motherfucker, as he tears Ultron's head off. Brilliant. Absolute brilliant. Also, Captain America was disguising himself as the Black Panther the entire time, which implies a lot of things. I mean, he's a blonde white man pretending to be a black superhero, and then tie-in explains that he was covering for the real Black Panther to uh to let him go home to Wakanda so that Nick Fury could not spy on them, even though Nick Fury is in another universe with no way to spy on them. Whatever. Janet defends Hank Pym, who, by the way, domestically abused her for like years, even though she had an arc about overcoming the trauma of domestic abuse from Hank Pym. Oh my god, Jesus. And in a plot twist, Doctor Doom was behind Ultron all along. How, you ask? Why, you ask? Who cares? You know what? Loeb didn't actually care. So why should any of us actually care what happens here? Also, Magneto steals Thor's hammer, even though Thor could just call it to him. His signature move for Mjolnir. It comes back to his hand. Whatever. Also, another book that's kind of connected to Ultimatum is Ultimate Origins, and I'll just summarize the book because there's no real reason to like take in everything that happens there except for the Watcher, I guess, if you care about that. Nick Fury and Wolverine know each other from World War II days, and Nick Fury was established here to be the first super soldier, and his blood eventually like became the basis for Captain America's super soldier serum. Wolverine is experimented on by Weapon X because even in the Ultimate Universe, he can never catch a break. And the scientists discover a mutant gene in him and they activated him, making him the first ever mutant in the entire world. So apparently mutants were born in a lab and they weren't actually the next step in human evolution as previously established, which kind of really pissed off fans. I mean, honestly, I can't blame them. What kind of exposition is that? Mutants were created in a lab. Like, the X-Men's identity was based on the whole, like, are mutants the next evolution? Are they gonna displace humanity? And the whole revelation that they were just lab experiments. Yeah. Oh, and Spider-Man's parents were killed by the Hulk in front of him when he was a baby, which contradicts what's already been shown in his own book. What? Like there was a whole point back in Ultimate Spider-Man that Richard Parker and Mary Parker were both killed in a plane crash with Eddie Brock's parents up until he was like 4 or 5 or something, and now they say that they all died. They both died when he was a baby. I'll start getting used to like contradicting plots. Also, Magneto apparently freed Wolverine from Weapon X after discovering his mutant heritage, and he killed both of his parents, which is really bad considering Magneto has previously stated that his family died in the gas chambers in World War II. His entire family, by the way. So was that mean he lied? He lied about being a Holocaust survivor? What? What the wait, what? Also, of course, like I said, there's also something about the Watcher who states that there's an upcoming crisis. Yes, there is an upcoming crisis. Your sales. Here we are, Ultimatum. The final nail in the coffin. This was a bad comic, to say the least. But, like I said, slow burn. So the book starts normal, Reed Richards is gonna propose to Sue Storm. The Ultimates are still letting Hank Pym, the domestic abuser, hang around because, nothing says good PR than letting a domestic abuser in the team. Yeah. Peter Parker's on a date, and the X-Men are hanging around town. And then this happens. Okay, first of all, how does this logically even happen? Suddenly, New York City is 6 stories flooded. In Latveria, everyone froze to death. And in South America, volcanoes erupting. What? Sue tries to hold back the tide with her powers, but she goes into a coma doing so. Well, that's taken care of. Next character. Oh, and some of the characters die instantly, like Dazzler, Franklin Storm, Nightcrawler, Beast, and then Professor Xavier has an Obi-Wan moment about hearing like the millions of voices suddenly crying out and being silenced, and he tells everyone in a Discord call that Magneto is responsible. And how did he even do that, if you ask? He shifted the magnetic poles. What? Is that even possible? According to National Geographic, this won't even happen. Like, sure, shifting the magnetic poles, cell phones and satellites will be affected, but it won't cause thunderstorms and a tsunami over New York. Ugh. Anyways, Cap's in a coma and Valkyrie's dead, so Thor's going to Valhalla and... What even is this outfit? Honestly. By the way, Cap's soul is conveniently there and they fight zombies, so that's 2 of them taken care of. Next characters, please. We cut to Hank and Hawkeye trying to search for the Wasp, and in the single worst infamous comic panels of all time, they find the Blob cannibalizing the Wasp. What the fuck? Oh yeah, Magneto just suddenly is in the X-Mansion. I don't even know how he did it. I assume a teleporter? Who knows? After Magneto does his, typical evil guy speech about beating God's skill count, Charleston compares him to Pol Pot, Bin Laden, and Hitler. And I guess the Hitler comparison insults Magneto's like LARP Jewish heritage. And then he snaps Charles' neck. Wow. How edgy. After that, more characters are confirmed dead. Most of the other mutant superheroes connected to the X-Men are dead. There's Multiple Man who's been suicide bombing the Triskelion with his copies. And then Hank Pym, in a moment of drama, tells Tony to use the Yocasta files on Janet and then lures every Multiple Man copy into the river where he blows up. Oh yeah, and Cap and Valkyrie are back, while Thor stays behind. Yay! Meanwhile, Reed and Doom find Nick Fury, who tells them he knew this might happen and exposes Doom's plan, which was he wanted Magneto to get angry at humanity so that he'll kill most of them before Doom steps in and then stops him, and then he rules over the other survivors. What an excellent plan. Oh, by the way, Spider-Man died. Yeah, it wasn't even like a significant part of the comic. It was just a throwaway scene where Peter dies when Doctor Strange's house exploded. By the way, Strange himself dies when Dormammu pops him like a balloon. Dude, seriously, what is wrong with the deaths here? They're laughably edgy. Oh my god. The way he dies without even being heavily acknowledged in the book itself left a few fans pissed. Marvel's sacred cow dies and then just gets like shunted off the corner while the story moves forward. Meanwhile, our surviving group of heroes storm Magneto's base and... oh fuck, they died. Well, not really everyone, but Angel dies instantly, being mauled by Sabretooth. Magneto also kills Wolverine, shredding every atom from his adamantium skeleton to prevent him from healing. Because that's totally how magnetism works. Whatever. Fury then shows up and reveals to Magneto the truth about mutants. They weren't a chosen race, or an evolutionary step. They were just a failed experiment gone loose. This sends Magneto spiraling since this actually invalidates everything he knew in his life, but he manages to recover to reverse the damage to the poles. And then Cyclops kills him with an optic blast. Epic. After all that bullcrap, Cyclops is in front of the Capitol addressing an angry crowd with an empowering speech about, how mutants and humans can still... oh, he got assassinated. We cut back to Doom in his castle when Ben Grimm walks in and says Reed told him everything and how Reed couldn't bring himself to kill Doom, but he can. Wow, what an edgelord. And with that, the Thing crushes his head like a balloon. Am I reading The Boys or what the hell? By the way, the assassin of Cyclops? Quicksilver. Wait, didn't he die in Ultimates 3? Well, who cares? He's with Sabretooth, Mystique, and a mysterious woman while he states he helped plan this entire thing. What entire thing? The assassination or Magneto causing 2012 to happen? The last page is laughable because it's a dedication message to all the creators who started this universe. Yes, what a respectful piece of work this truly was. Oh, the kill count? Thousands, if not millions actually, and most of the world's heroes dead. And like most crossover events, by the way, there were tie-ins like Ultimate Spider-Man where Spider-Man is sort of helping out the chaos in the streets, and it's actually really good. It's too good to be in this crapsack event, but who's complaining? I'll take my wins. So as can be expected, this book was an ultimate failure. Everyone hated this book, and personally, it's one of the worst things I've read in my life. The edginess and the violence is off-putting. The disregard for canon, which is one of my greatest icks for any medium, unless it's time travel, is rampant. The best way I can honestly describe this entire book is if an edgy teenager was writing something for class, and this is what the results are. Oh yeah, don't get me started on the dialogue, man. Here are just some examples. If you're God, then God is dead. You think you can R-word my brain? Xavier tried that and failed. Think again, you giant Zippo. The frickin' cavalry is here. Hey man, it was nothing personal. It was only personal. Murdered an angel. Guess that means I'm going to hell for sure. Boom. That's gonna leave a mark. Apparently, during my research, fans used to edit the panels to have ridiculous dialogue. And this one, I swear, if I didn't have context and I didn't know this was fan-made, I would have actually believed this was a real comic book panel. Also, at the time, there was really no proper reading order that was given. So, if you wanted to read the full story, good luck. You would have probably missed like a chunk of the story. What a mess. But they eventually released a couple of Requiem titles, which is essentially like epilogues of sorts. For Ultimate Requiem Fantastic Four, it showed how the Torch was trapped inside Dormammu, and Reed and Ben's conversation which caused him to kill Doom. Personally, I believe this should have been in the main comic book event, but whatever. The story ends on a sad note with the team disbanding. Johnny has PTSD from his father's death, Ben Grimm joins the military, and Sue rejects Reed's proposal. Ultimate Requiem Spider-Man was J. Jonah Jameson writing an obituary for Spider-Man, which was really touching and honestly made me feel like a lot of things for J. Jonah Jameson and his character in general. And the final page ends with Cap and Tony finding Peter's body, and one eye opens. So apparently, editorial realized they screwed up big time by killing Marvel's sacred cow here, and I think they backtracked a bit and revealed that Peter Parker survived. Honestly, I don't care at this point, but small wins, I guess. And so, Ultimate Universe continued on, with most of the writers writing after that, ignoring Ultimatum. Honestly, Good on them. I'd ignore that event immediately if I was the writer. The X-Men never really recovered, seeing as how their popular heroes and villains were killed in the event. The Fantastic Four never returned either. Johnny Storm became an immigrant into Spider-Man's comic, and he became a regular character there. Reed eventually becomes the Maker, who still causes trouble to this day in the main universe, and eventually a new Ultimate Universe. But, that's a story for another video. Oh yeah, remember those plot lines in Ultimatum? Yeah, nothing happened with them. I don't know if the plans for them were scrapped or Jeff Loeb didn't really have a plan beyond that, but whatever. Eventually, in 2015, the Ultimate Universe was killed off for good in a crisis event in Marvel. While some fans were sad that this universe came to an end, there were still some fond memories and good storylines from earlier stages of the universe. And like I said, it did influence the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the earlier phases. But apparently the Ultimate Universe is alive again. But well, nothing's happening there right now. It's just showing that, oh, Ultimate Universe is actually alive again. We do know it exists because it was shown in Spider-Man 2. Oh, and I guess the positive impact that this universe ultimately gave us is Miles Morales. When Peter Parker died for real this time in Death of Spider-Man, Miles took on the mask and became the new Spider-Man for a while in 1610, which is the universe designation of Ultimate Marvel. Before migrating to the main universe, he exploded even more in popularity when the Spider-Verse movies came out, and as far as I know, he has his own fan base and considered worthy of the Spider-Man title. So there you have it. What a retrospective. Comics are complicated, but hopefully this won't discourage any of you to pick up a comic. There are some highs and there are some lows, but it's such an entertaining medium with a lot of morals that most kids can learn from. Just don't be edgy and kill off any characters for shock value.